Welcome to Make Your Money Matter with Brad Barrett, the show that aims to change the way you think about wealth management. Brad is a certified financial advisor, established radio host, and author of Retire Right. He is a managing director and partner at One Capital Management, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm managing over $4 billion for clients across the nation. Brad and his team are dedicated to helping clients protect and preserve their assets so they can reach their investment and retirement goals. And now, your host of Make Your Money Matter, Brad Barrett.
Hey everyone, welcome to Make Your Money Matter. I'm your host, Brad Barrett. I'm also a managing director and partner here at One Capital Management. And I'm here each and every week to help you better understand your finances because after all, your money matters. Friends, today we're going to be talking about a few important topics around Roth IRAs, some how-tos, some basics. And I talk a lot about this with clients. And for those of you out there who have IRAs and maybe even Roth IRAs, or maybe a 401k or a Roth 401k, understanding how to use those are really important as you build your wealth in those asset classes. And then ultimately, when you go into retirement or ultimately go to use them. Before we get started on this week's episode around Roth, we've all heard of Roths before, typically, most likely. It's how do we use them? Is it better or worse than an IRA? And I want to start out by saying that neither one is right or wrong for anyone. It's just how you use them. You might have heard me say this statement before. It's not always what you own, but how you own it. And I'll talk about that a lot today, especially around the Roth IRA concept. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of us like to talk about the next stock that's going to hit or the next, investment. That's great. Hoorah. But wouldn't you want to know the most efficient way to own that said stock or position or investment you might be doing? So using the advantages of Roth and using specifically tax advantage retirement savings vehicles such as IRAs are important. Not paying income tax on the gains, allowing bigger pools of savings to compound. This will all result in more retirement income or more income when you need it. So let's spend a few minutes talking specifically about Roth IRA and tax rates here in the United States. There's a correlation here that I think would be really great for us to understand. My first question is this. I actually have two, but I'm gonna go with one here. For everyone watching and listening right now, do you think taxes are going down? I'm gonna pause there for a second because I laid that up in a way that I think most of us are probably answering. I know I can't see you right now. You're probably answering no. Well, I want to understand why. As those of you who watch my show each week, I'm a big believer as to, why we do what we do matters a lot. And I want to ask the second question. Do you remember what year the United States permanently adopted an income tax? Probably not. So I want to talk about this history here for a second. The tax code was enacted via the 16th Amendment to our Constitution. The 16th Amendment was actually passed by Congress in 1909 and then ratified by the states in 1913. The amendment authorized Congress to impose a federal income tax on US citizens and corporations. Now, here's what I find astounding, and I think it's really interesting if you are a nerd like me to go look this up. It may strike you as somewhat strange that the income tax would ever be adopted because after all, who would vote to give up a portion of their income? Well, believe it or not, in 1913, this is the crazy part, there was widespread support for state ratification of the 16th Amendment. You see, and here's context to this, prior to the income tax being put into place, government revenues were derived primarily from taxes on goods, import tariffs on products made abroad, and excise taxes on things like alcohol. So, talk about hitting us below the belt on that one. And that type of revenue generation model really hurt working class people. Think about that. And it benefited, believe it or not, the rich. It was very much what you would call a regressive tax design. And people were mad. They were pissed off. Rightfully so. So in the early 1900s, America's common man, you and I, believed that there should be some shouldering of the majority of the share of paying taxes. And by establishing an income tax, it would actually force the rich, if you will, to pay their fair share. And as a result, in 1913, the 16th Amendment became the law of the land with 42 states voting for the amendment and only 6 states voting against. So initially, the 16th Amendment enjoyed overwhelmingly popular support. I know that sounds crazy, but it did. But now let's fast forward 109 years to 2022, to today. To a person, practically everyone hates paying income taxes. I don't know if I've ever met someone be like, oh man, I'm just so stoked for April 15th. I just can't wait. I mean, it's just not happen. And April 15th, speaking of that day, has become somewhat like the most dreaded day of the year. According to a study published in the American Medical Association's journal, this is back in 2012, about 10 years ago, on April 15th, tax day, there is a 6% increase in the odds of you dying in a car accident. Now, I don't know about you, I kind of read through this. The article goes on to explain contributing factors such as stress, distraction, and sleep loss. So, take what you will from that, but at the very least, I think that tax season causes many people to have a high degree of, we'll call it irritability, helping to bring, in this case, road rage to a climax. So everyone, if you're driving, listening to me right now, be careful. And here's what's all the frustration about? Why does April 15th bring pent-up anger to the surface? Again, the US tax code is composed, get this, of an estimated 4 million words. I did the research. I'm a nerd. Look, it's what you get with me, okay? That's about 6 times as many as there are in the Bible. And there's a lot less good in the tax code. I can share that. And even the new simplified tax cut legislation can at times be confusing and ambiguous. Now, according to the US House Ways and Means Committee, it's estimated that Americans, people, you and me, each year collectively spend about $170 billion and 6 billion hours trying to comply with the tax code. That's simply an incredible amount of money and time and just wasted. I mean, just think about that. Just think about all the wonderful things that could be done if government redirected $170 billion of capital and 6 billion hours of labor in a more positive direction. I digress. But with our country's national debt sitting right around $30 trillion, raising tax revenue is of paramount importance. Now, I want to go back to my question for a second. Do you think tax rates are going down? Democrats think that tax rates are too low. Republicans think that they're too high. And in all honesty, to some degree, tax rates have hardly ever mattered. Whoa, right? Big statement from me, okay? Because the system is still riddled with so many loopholes and deductions, all of which force people to spend money to shelter income in an attempt to avoid taxes. This is how we end up, by the way, everyone, with billionaires paying a lower tax rates than their personal assistants. I mean, I was driving around the other day and I was actually hearing a radio ad promoting a book that claims to show you how to take advantage of loopholes in this new tax reform bill that happened a couple years ago, resulting in you paying $0 in tax. Now, maybe you can read the follow-up version of the book from your jail cell, small laugh there, because another real problem is government spending. I mean, you don't want to go and find these loopholes that are illegal. You want to find, obviously, a marginal tax code allows you areas to use your tax planning. We do that here at our firm to maybe use the code to allow you to tax plan and house it to do it with your investments. Now, remember, the government gets its money by taxing us or by borrowing from us. So any way you look at it, when the public sector spends more, the private sector, you and I, have less to spend. And I'm bringing this all to a point to talk about Roth, I promise you, but it's interesting in our history. We've heard the statement before. History tends to repeat itself. And in our business, we talk about this a lot. In 20 years of being an advisor and an investment manager, we say this a lot, that historical performance does not reflect future gains. And that is true, but it tends to have some trends. And here's the thing. Who do you think makes better decisions with your hard-earned money? The government or you? I bet you do. So given all this, where are the tax rates today? Looking back all the way to 1913, relatively speaking, today's income tax rates, this is going to sound crazy for a second, they look comparatively low. Today's top tax rate is 35%, which is somewhat modest in comparison to yesteryear. So before we get into Roth and why this is all coming to a head with Roth and why it could be really useful for you, and we'll talk about some of the strategic ways to use it, I want to go back for one more second and talk to you about why the 35% tax rate right now is relatively low. Believe it or not, for most of the 1940s and all of the 1950s, the top income tax rate was more than 90%. But in reality, almost no one paid that rate. There were tons and tons of deductions and loopholes. So at today's rates, once you take all your legal deductions, do you know actually what you are paying in federal income taxes? By the way, I heard someone say it, more than you should be paying. I agree. And that's probably true. But get this, according to MarketWatch, more than 44% of Americans pay no federal income tax whatsoever. That's more than 4 out of 10 wage earners. Now, There was an article written by a guy named Quentin Futrell. It was dated a couple years ago, February 26, 2019, which MarketWatch also reports. So the country's federal tax burden is shouldered by 55% of the workers. In other words, in a country of around 320 million people, 93 million people pay federal taxes. That's roughly 30%. So why am I saying all this? Let's connect a few dots. We have a huge national debt. We have massive government spending. We have 1/3 of the nation's citizens paying federal income taxes. And we have historically low federal income tax rates. Given all that, what conclusion do you draw? Again, remember, the primary source of income for government is our taxes. Is the conclusion going through your mind the same as what's going through our mind? Do you think that the federal income tax rates are more or less likely to increase in the future? Look, no one knows for certain, and I for sure don't have a crystal ball, and no one does. If they say they do, run, please. But it seems that there'd be a lot more upward pressure to increase federal tax rates. What if there were a way to enjoy a federally income tax-free retirement? Would that be appealing to you? Just think about it. You wouldn't have to worry about the potential of income taxes going up and thereby reducing your net retirement income. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Well, that's why I'm bringing you to Roth, because it can be yours. Thanks to a man named William Roth, specifically Senator William Roth. He was a senator from 1971 to 2001. He served from the state of Delaware. He was quite a guy if you look at him. He was an attorney, a graduate of Harvard University, a veteran of World War II, and he was a fiscal conservative. And it's not a stretch to say that Bill Roth might have given you and me, might have given all of us, the biggest legal tax sanctuary that exists, the Roth IRA. Again, Roth isn't for everybody, but it's important to go through this because I think more of the questions I get from our show, from our radio program, from our dinner events is largely around, hey, have you heard of Roth? How do I use it? I have a small Roth. What do I do with it? Roth IRAs are tax-favored financial vehicles that help investors to save money for retirement. Roths are different than traditional IRAs in that contributions cannot be deducted. So a traditional IRA, it can be deducted. In a Roth IRA, it cannot be deducted. However, qualified Roth IRA distributions during retirement are federally income tax free. I said it, federally income tax free. So for those of you watching who have a Roth, who know this stuff, it might be rudimentary, but it's important to remind ourselves of how to use it. For those of you who've never heard of Roth, this is really key to hone in. You might be saving into a 401k right now that has a Roth feature. You might have your own individual business and set up an individual 401k. You might want to add a Roth feature to it. So think about it this way. When you put money into a Roth, your current year's contribution is not tax deductible. It's made, the contribution to a Roth is made with after-tax dollars that have already been taxed. And as you invest those contributions, the Roth provides tax-free growth for the gains. Then best of all, when you're ready to begin taking money from the Roth, in retirement maybe, when you're ready to take money out of the Roth, its income is federally tax-free. So this feature creates a huge advantage to Roths, especially if you're of the opinion that federal income tax rates are going higher in the future because future higher tax rates won't affect your retirement income. Thank you, Senator Roth.
Stay connected. Get frequent updates on the show. Follow Brad Barrett and Make Your Money Matter on most social media platforms. And catch full episodes of Make Your Money Matter streaming now on our YouTube channel. To schedule your no-obligation appointment, go to onecapital.com or call 805-410-5454.
One thing I want to say here, please keep in mind, although Roth IRA income is federally tax-free, in some situations there are subject to state and or local income taxes. So you need to check on that and make sure, obviously, when you talk about anything with regards to any investment or asset class, Roth or IRA, it's really good to integrate your planning with a CPA or a tax attorney. You know, a Roth is subject to the same contribution limits as a traditional IRA and have the same catch-up features. But one thing I want to share very openly, and I talk a lot about this on our dinner events, is there's the two C's, I call it, when it comes to Roth. There's contributions and conversions. And I think a lot of people get those mixed up. So on contributions, you are capped out. There's a phase-out limit. You can look up those annual limits each year. Depends on how much income you're making per the year. If you're married, head of household, married, filing jointly, or single, there's different phase-out limits. Conversion is unlimited. So people misconstrue those sometimes. Theoretically, if you had $1 million in a traditional IRA, you can convert it entirely to a Roth. I'm not saying you should do that, but you could. Now you'd pay income tax on all of that, but contributions have limits, conversions do not. Now, additionally, Roth IRAs are not subject to required minimum distributions or your RMD. They're not subject to RMD rules. So you're not required to take money out of your Roth beginning at age 72, and you can continue to contribute to a Roth after age 72 as well. So as long as you have earned income. So it has these really cool features to it that adds another, bang for your buck as another what I call asset class for your retirement. So if you're looking for a retirement vehicle with some powerful and I'll call it distinct tax advantages, make sure that you investigate the Roth IRA structure. I mean, there is an income limit to a Roth IRA, so not everyone is eligible, but it's worth looking into. And I think more than anything else, being that the Roth's only been around for 25 years or so, anyone watching or listening right now, you've probably been exposed to Roth, trying to understand, well, how much of each? Typically, if you have a Roth option in your 401k plan, you'll have the ability to choose. You can put like 50% in there. And I get this asked all the time, Brad, how much should I contribute to my traditional and how much can I contribute to my Roth? That is a very specific question that should be really looked at from a planning perspective. I know those of you who watch and listen every week, that's something I harp on, but it really means a lot because we want to look at your tax structure. We want to focus on the tolerance level of what your investments are, your income, your outflows, but also again, the mindset of, okay, what are your thoughts? And I can give you ours about where we're seeing tax rates going and how do we strategically manage that? And some of the things when it comes to the conversion, remember I mentioned that earlier? Again, with everything with Roth, when you talk about conversions in particular, you really want to make sure you talk with a CPA or an accountant to go through what the right structure is for you. We help with that with our clients as well. But you want to focus on what I call the bracket game. Because our tax code is marginal, we talked about this on a previous episode as well. Because our tax bracket is marginal, I call it the bracket game. You want to maximize the highest of the lowest tax bracket. So understanding what your income levels are has a lot to do with how much you may or may not want to convert. Maybe you're someone who's been investing for 15 years and most of it's in an IRA and you have $100,000 in there and you're saying, hey, I really think tax rates are going up and I want to move some of that over. You want to make sure you do it in an efficient manner. So understanding how much each year you can pull over to not pay more taxes than you really have to, if that's a strategy of yours. But that's the word I want to use. Roth, in the bundle of other assets that you might have, whether it's a brokerage account, a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k, a house or something like that, it really needs to have a strategy to it. You really want to make sure you have purposeful investments and purposeful design as to why you would have it. And that gets into bucket planning and then bucket distribution strategies, right? There's conventional wisdom as to which buckets of assets you would take when you choose to retire. And you want to have after-tax bucket, tax-deferred bucket, and then ideally, I do think it's nice to have a Roth bucket in there. It's nice to have a Roth feature. Is it for everybody? No. But it is interesting, and this also has to do with time period as well, right? If you're on the doorstep of retirement and you've mostly got traditional IRAs, we may want to look at conversions, but we may not want to look at contributions because the time may not make sense. So just some ideas to chew on. That's really where you want to sit with your advisor. Give us a call to go through that strategy for you. We'll put our number up on the screen here. You can give us a call. It's not a problem. So I wanted to go through some of the history of taxes, and why the Roth, the evolution of it and why it was so profound, because it's basically a tug of rope, right? We're just switching around what you can deduct today for tomorrow. So there's a lot of theory on that, based on higher tax rates and things like that. But it is a good strategy to consider. And I wanted to make sure we walk through a couple basics today around Roth versus traditional. A Roth is going in with after-tax dollars, grows tax-free, comes out tax-free as well, as long as it is qualified. And qualified means two rules. You are above the age of 59 and a half, and you've had the IRA for at least 5 years. So you want to make sure you hit those two as well to make sure that it becomes a qualified distribution, which therefore means it is not taxed. Again, everything around any kind of tax strategy or things like that, you want to make sure you suss out with your CPA or an accountant. And if you're working with an advisor or want to work with someone like us, we're able to integrate that to make sure that the left hand is talking to the right hand. Okay, it's time to answer your questions on the Make Your Money Matter show. If you have a question or topic you would like me to address, you can leave a comment or a question in the comment section. Or if it's something a bit more personal, you want to go one-on-one, just go to the About page on this channel and send us an email. We always keep the questions I read here anonymous, so you never have to worry about your name being shared, but we would love to hear from you. So the question that came in this week around the Roth IRA conversation was actually something I touched on a few minutes ago around I have a 401k that has a Roth ability. How much should I put in the Roth and how much should I put in traditional? So again, this is probably the most common question we get, and it really has a lot to do with different factors. And I just think it's important for me to share that openly, candidly, and honestly, because there isn't a right size fits all structure or answer to that question. But I will say this, I think for anyone starting out, one of the things you can do is start out 50-50, right? It's a suggestion, not an advice necessarily, but you start out 50% traditional, 50% Roth. And you start seeing ultimately after the first calendar year, how your deductions are relative to the left side, which is your, contributory or your traditional deferred, and see if that moves the needle there. If there's taxes owed or there wasn't enough withholdings going on and you want to move some of what you're contributing over to Roth over because you're more concerned about taxes today, that might be the shift backwards. Or if it's working out and you really see that tomorrow's tax rates for you when you retire or are above the age of 60, let's say, and you can distribute out of a Roth, will that be beneficial to you? So it really is one of those in the eyes of the beholder. Like my job is really, especially on this show here, on the Make Your Money Matter show, is to arm you with the information. And I think from there is where you take that information and take it from a two-dimensional area and make it dynamic, make it three-dimensional, put it to your planning, put it to future forecasting and see where things go. And you can do that. Numbers are great. We have a bunch of abilities to be able to do that for clients to show you, a dollar today invested where it can be. There's some hypothetical conversions there to look at. Same thing you can do with asset classes like Roth or traditional. So I love the question. I wish I could answer it more directly. I said, do this and you'll be great. But I really think it's important to take a look at the overall picture. I mean, I got a lot of clients that come in and just say, yeah, love Roth. I'm okay with not getting deduction. I'm getting deductions elsewhere. So, I'm either donating to charity or I'm getting scheduled deductions through, my house, mortgage interest or something like that. So I'm good on that. So I'll just do the Roth IRA because I do think that when I retire, the tax rates that I'm paying now are going to be less than what they'll be then. So I'd rather take it out at a higher tax rate. My conversation on the other side is we don't know. So if we're putting 100% all of it in Roth and just banking a 30-year career on that and putting all into Roth, what if they're not higher? What if they're lower? Then that entire time we were paying, taxes on monies contributed to a Roth. So it really is it's the eye of the beholder. And so, it really has a lot to do with how much we think the tax code is going to go up. And so hopefully that answered the question a little bit. And again, if you have a question or comment you'd like me to read here, again, leave it in the comment section or email us in the About page on our channel. Hey, before we go, if you found anything helpful today and want to learn more, you can visit our website at onecapital.com. You can also call or text us. We want to help. Listen, there's no pressure here. We don't treat people like a number. In fact, we value relationships. It's the lifeblood of what we do. So click, call, or text us today. If you're not following us on social media, you should be. You can follow us at Make Your Money Matter. We're sharing great information on all of our social media platforms. And as I often say, if you enjoy the show, if you like the show, share with someone you like. And I guess if you don't like it, share with someone you don't like. But until next time, always remember, make your money matter.
The information in this show is educational and general in nature and does not take into consideration a listener's personal circumstances. Therefore, it is not intended to be a substitute for specific individualized financial, legal, or tax advice. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a final decision.